Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card, do you want to come out? If you want to come out, come out. First card we are starting our day off with today is the Fool in its reversal. We love to see this card coming into play today. Care, conscientiousness, care, attention to detail. This is a beautiful card to see in its reversal because what are we seeing that's effectively happening right now? That ability to take a risk, but it is the feeling of taking that older but wiser risk, that moment or opportunity of recognizing where you have come from and utilizing that to guide your path forward. Not surprising to see this card today, specifically because we are recognizing that for a lot of the energy and separation, that moment of understanding, the recognition point of potentially even holding someone in a space or place of energetic care, love, emotionality, doing what you feel is effectively the right thing, even if it isn't necessarily the easy thing. That is that informed journey. That is that sense of potentially feeling that sense of catharsis, doing the right thing, but also allowing yourself that easement point in relationality to feeling confident in order to move forward at this time. So we are seeing and identifying that for a lot of this energy right now, that ability to feel like you are ready to move forward is coming through. And I like to say this, it's almost like that second separation point, if you will, that is being amplified potentially right now. If this is feminine energy that had some masculine energy that returned, but there was an obvious clarity point that someone did not necessarily use the time in between to heal or to facilitate healing, maybe even the observational point of someone coming back to you at this time that didn't feel like there was anything to heal, almost just amplifying what may have led to the separation moment in the first place. This is that affirmation of potentially recognizing that you and someone else are just effectively on very different paths at this time. And that ability to observe that is where we see a lot of that energetic healing that is effectively immediately coming back towards you right now, that is now giving you the feeling of security, that is confidence to be able to move forward, albeit hesitantly. Masculine energy, if you are also in separation, if there was a modality wherein feminine came back to you as well, you also saw the possibility of reconnecting with an energy, but you felt like that energy was trying to change, trying to adjust, trying to accommodate, trying to bend themselves too much, breaking their own, moving off alignment within their own self to try to come into alignment with you. We see energetically for a lot of the masculine energy doing that hard energetic work of basically looking at someone and saying, my love for you, my care for you is tantamount, but we are on different paths, is what is also allowing that sense of catharsis to come through right now, that is amplifying masculine, that is also ready to move forward, albeit hesitantly. For the energy right now that's coming into points of reconciliation, having seen some point of adjustment in relationality to some past energy coming back. Feminine, seeing a masculine energy that's able to take accountability, that potentially feels like they're able to articulate on their emotions as opposed to subjecting oneself to the emotions. Doing that energetic work right now. This ability of understanding and seeing that there is this breakthrough work occurring is what is allowing this ability right now to move forward. It's being amplified in seeing the actions of someone that feel like they are moving in better alignment. Though again, we see that hesitancy, that care, that caution, even as you move forward with that leap of faith. Masculine, if these were modalities or situations wherein feminine's trying to return to you and you're seeing that you are in alignment, the separation may have been reached right now, potentially in the fact that you surprised the feminine with something that they weren't necessarily ready to receive. The discernment moment between seeing someone saying, I can come into an accommodation point of something I didn't know, versus someone saying, I can adjust, I can change, I can try to adjust myself to be in alignment with you. This ability of recognizing this is what is potentially also allowing that tentative pathwork of restoration, albeit carefully and slowly, allowing that sense of time will tell. Masculine and feminine energy and separation right now that are moving away from those other past connections. You see how these energies now are almost completely on the same path. They're almost completely in the same alignment. Again, there may even be that hesitancy when they meet in terms of amplifying and saying, I don't know if I'm ready. I just necessarily came out of something. Masculine and feminine energy that are moving into divine union right now, this sense of the easement through which you are coming into divine union is almost amplifying right now that sense. I told you, that understanding, that deepened resolve, that deepened recognition point that a lot of the energy may be feeling, even as they move right now with a lot of easement into the divine union frequency. This is like coming into cruising altitude and then getting to like look down, if you will, in terms of what led you to coming into that space. For a lot of the energy right now, the ability to have perspective, to feel the easement coming through in a way, is now helping build clarity on what wasn't working in the past, that wasn't as easy. And that is going to be most identifiable in recognizing both the path of oneself, what you also needed to experience that led you to this point, as well as seeing some of the energy that was around you that may have facilitated or hindered your own ability to move forward in that way. This is that sense of better understanding that the divine union frequency brings forth. For masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency, this is that moment. We see here a lot of that heavy work you've been doing over the last few days, recognizing and identifying, making those necessary changes, trying to act as clear mirrors for the other, potentially even unpacking or showing something about pattern recognition, working on what you can fix, looking at what can come into greater sense of easement. What we're effectively seeing here right now is that is allowing you to come into this energetic expansion moment. This is the refinement, if you will, of the path for the energy in the divine union frequency, recognizing that you're not necessarily the same energetic signature that you were when you entered it, but allowing that to be something that is facilitating even more expertise in relationality to how you are tackling the situations and circumstances that you are moving forward into right now. Because this is that moment that we're effectively seeing of energetic discernment, care, caution, being able to recognize and come into alignment. It's hard, it's heavy work, but it is necessary. Next card, second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our 4 of Swords. This is not surprising to see either. We drew this card yesterday. What are we effectively seeing right now? This is that moment that we are effectively identifying. And we have to stress here, one of the things that's really important right now for the energy that is in the divine union frequency is this attention, this navigating circumstances and situations that are helping you better see and recognize and understand the self. So one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now is, again, for the energy in the divine union frequency, what's very lovely about this is almost planning for points of easement. This is almost planning for points of calm. This is ability right now of coming into that definable understanding of what feels like you need to change in the moment versus what you feel like you can change in the future, to allow for some of that continuation of breakthrough work. So this could even be identifying right now for a lot of energy at play in the divine union frequency, laying plans ahead right now for some point of easement, looking right now and trying to recognize what that looks like, what the shape of that is, because we see more than anything right now, that ability to find those rest points is so necessary and welcome for the energy in the divine union frequency. And even now, I have to stress, we have been seeing that for the energy in the divine union, there's been a lot of energetic unpacking that has been occurring over the last few days. So there may be an amplification today on some need to take some kind of energetic rest for yourself, to allow for the fact that you've been doing so much of this work as it relates to like path refining. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into the divine union frequency. This is the amplification of that feeling you have after the breakthrough. Because I told you, one of the things that we almost saw right now for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency is this is that like energetic frequency of like hitting cruising altitude. And it's like that moment that may be feeling like that indescribable feeling of energetic catharsis, that feeling of certainty and relationality to how you're moving right now, but almost that moment that suddenly creates enough energetic clearing, if you will, that you can start to consider some things and some events that may have led forth to this point. This is why we see that even now, for a lot of the energy that is moving forward into divine union, it may feel like you're doing a lot of that energetic unpacking, if you were, because you are looking and observing through new optics everything that may have energetically led you to the point that you find yourself now. You're potentially also recognizing that that is mutual path work in terms of coming into a better understanding of yourself, doing that hard work to come into divine union, while also being very attentive of all of the energetic connections that may have led forth prior to this point. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation. This modality, this affirmation for the energy right now that has had to go through an experience wherein potentially some energy from the past came back towards you to be able to discern and identify if there was some ability of having some kind of energetic breakthrough there. For this is either the energy of feeling the catharsis, seeing clearly an ability of something that has changed, something that has shifted enough that there is some viability point in terms of being able to move forward. And that's almost immediately creating this sense of emotional, spiritual ease and catharsis, because it's amplifying the value, the viability of having had to go into separation in the first place. While as for other parts of the collective right now, going into separation, having someone energetically come back, almost feeling immediately the affirmation of seeing someone who has not effectively changed or has not even been considering the fact that there was some healing that was necessary to occur, that moment of comprehension immediately returns the healing gesture to oneself, because that is the moment that you say, they are on a very different path from me. I just need to effectively heal from that instead of waiting for that to heal. So we see now that even now that is showing that energetic sense of restoration that is occurring right now for the energy that has made the choice to move forward on the path of trying to come into divine union, not being sure what effectively is on that directionality, but feeling a sense of solace in your own determination to move forward in that direction. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here beautiful energy. We keep getting these cards today. This card's been popping up a lot too in the same position. We have here our 10 of Swords in its reversal. This is feeling like that energetic moment, and it's going to feel like, again, for a lot of the energy right now, this is going to feel like a lot of conservation of energy, particularly in separation, because this is almost going to be most amplified in that sensation or that voicing of saying, I'm healing and I'm ready. I'm healing and I'm ready. And we see even now for a lot of the energy right now that's moving forward in this way, it could be that sense of moving forward in this direction. It does feel like it is a tender area. It does feel like it is sensitive, but in a way, it almost feels like one is putting that directionality into play, recognizing and feeling like you're doing what you know is best for you, as in relationality to whether it is easy. I told you, a lot of this energy and separation right now, your ability to do what you feel is the right thing, as opposed to what is the most available or the easy thing, moving into that sense of integrity. In itself, it's heavy work. There's a lot of catharsis at play here. These are heavy cards, but it almost immediately brings forward some sort of healing gesture, because this is that moment or opportunity where you're recognizing and feeling like you know that the path forward in restoration is not the path through which you went before, because you just saw some optics that gave you clarity that while that pathway may be open, it hasn't necessarily changed. It's still in that space or place where you may either feel like it isn't facilitating a positive energetic connection, or you may feel like it's effectively a choice that you would make that would energetically limit you and another, which is why we see that this is that energetic healing gesture being put into play. While for the energy right now that's coming into restoration and resolution, the ability to see someone returning back towards you right now, older, wiser, understanding, being able to articulate on what has changed in the intervening space and time, helping you identify and recognize that there is a new viable path there, that is creating a sense of catharsis and something that feels akin to rebirth. But again, it is hesitant, it is sensitive, it is something that feels a little bit uncertain because you're not sure where that path leads. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is that feeling that you're already there. this is what's very interesting for a lot of the energy right now in the divine union frequency. It suddenly feels like, again, like laying plans and paths forward. It doesn't feel like it has as much excitement. It's like you kind of take it and leave it, if you will, because it's that moment of saying, like, anything that feels like it is like the instrumental expression of it, it feels more like a gesture right now, which is why we see, in a way, like there's some of this catharsis that's coming through right now, because it's the security and the stability that you're potentially feeling right now that is almost, again, this is the only thing that we're seeing that's a little bit energetically difficult right now, again, for the masculine and the feminine energy. Feminine wanting to take more time to rest, wanting to take more time to ease, masculine wanting to bring more of those changes about presently. So even now, though, we see that a lot of this is what we want to see that is occurring, because these are these energies just working on the details, right? That's what it's going to feel like for a lot of these like energies right now, that ability to work on the details, but not necessarily feeling like a lot of energetic rush on them, because you feel energetically that you're in alignment. It's all like almost like, I'm going to say, like for show. It doesn't feel like everything is contingent on something occurring at that timeline, because what you are feeling between someone is there. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This is more articulated in some kind of energetic piece that's coming around circumstances and situations today, because there is this moment that we're seeing that may be most amplified in feeling that like level and degree of plateau, if you will. We see that this is a lot of that energetic unpacking that has been occurring right now. I want to describe this energy that I'm seeing here for the energy in the divine union is when you're like halfway through a project and like the room is an absolute disaster and you're asking yourself, saying, why did we do this in the first place? It's going to feel a little bit like that today. And we may see even now that there may be something about feeling that there may be something that still feels like it is unfinished or needs to continue to be discussed, but you're just giving it a little space and time to rest, because this is like that intermission type of energy that we see coming into play around some of this like heavy energetic unpacking that has been occurring over the last few days. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, again, this is viable. This is valuable. If you're feeling, I need to stress this, if you're going through this right now and you're in divine union, if you feel like there's been a lot of energetic unpacking right now and you just need a moment of leisure to step away, I want to stress to you that's not leisure. Because what we're seeing that's happening right now in an unconscious space or place, this is like that moment of like just allowing the important thoughts to like come to the surface right now. This is like almost that moment that it feels more like, I have to stress right now, there's almost that sense or space of internal solitude that's entering right now for the energy in the divine union. But this is that companionate space wherein, again, you're moving away from a lot of heavy energetic unpacking. You're giving each other a little bit of space right now to allow for your own thoughts, to allow for your own like higher insights to kind of come into play. This is the beauty of the frequency of the divine union frequency. It doesn't have everything feeling like every moment is like now or never, because what you're experiencing in the frequency is being in the frequency. It's not like everything is contingent on these. It's almost just allowing for some of this energetic unpacking to work through right now. So this could be a moment where we're seeing that there may have been feeling over the last few days that there's been a lot of energetic opening up. And this is almost like that pause point to give yourself a little bit of space and time to sort out one's own thoughts in relationality to how to move forward from here. Specifically and directly, because we did see that for a lot of the energy in the divine union right now, there's been a lot of path discernment in recognizing the difference in where you may have begun, the plans that you may have had when you first entered the divine union right now versus where you find yourself presently. Masculine and feminine right now coming into divine union, that has less to do with you and the energy that your counterpart with. It has more to do with anything that may have potentially led to you finding that energy right now, because it's now that moment that I want to describe this as like hitting like you know, that plateau, hitting that like moment right now where like you're at like flying speed, if you will, that stillness, that sense of understanding that's now giving you a new perspective to look at some situations and circumstances from the past with new eyes. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is the moment that for the energy that has potentially made a point of discerning. There may have even been a point right now for a lot of energy of something from the past coming back towards you, recognizing and feeling like you are on different paths. This moment is that feeling of where do you go from here? Feeling like, again, there's some kind of energetic door that's almost open and you're not necessarily certain what's on the other side of it. But one of the things that you're guiding yourself on right now is that affirmation to oneself, that having recognized a pattern that you don't necessarily feel is healthy, you are now taking the steps to effectively or energetically break it, even if you're not sure what that looks like. Because how are you going to effectively energetically break a pattern without doing something that is different? For masculine and feminine energy, that is coming back into union at this time, that is seeing that ability, that there is an alignment of path that is occurring, that is creating a sense of energetic shift, feeling and experiencing someone coming back to you, but having made that path work feel like it's fallen better into alignment. That modality is now allowing a breakthrough in relationality to how you approach things, because you're already seeing the fact that you're not following the same unhealthy patterns. You're taking new opportunities. You're utilizing this as a moment that you may be encountering situations that you may have experienced in the past, but it's not creating the same results because you're now energetically open enough that you have those new pathways that are forming, those new approaches. That in a way is the energetic equivalent of seeing something that feels like it can heal, because you're immediately starting to see that the words match the action. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is 2 cards coming out for our 5th card. Look at this. Look at this beautiful energy that we have here right now. The 7 of Swords and our 9 of Cups. For the energy right now that's on that healing journey, for the energy that is going into a space or place of being able to have what may feel like that energetic reunion point in terms of meeting someone and feeling like there is something productive to come back here to. The affirmation and the ability to identify whether this is something that feels like a pattern is breaking, that is allowing for new pathways of opportunity, is almost that mutual recognition on how you may have previously navigated a circumstance and then immediately seeing someone not doing so. So that could even take the form of someone articulating and saying, in the past, we would have done this. We're not doing that now, we're doing this, because that is that moment that is showing the adaptability in recognizing what doesn't work to be able to implement what does. It requires that ability of looking backwards and looking forward. Masculine and feminine right now that is moving forward right now in terms of new connections, potentially meeting new energetic connections right now. One of the things that we're seeing that may feel like, again, that point of catharsis that's coming through right now in terms of situations or circumstances is feeling the ability of holding firmly right now on a manifestation goal, which may be just the amplification of saying, my affirmation is not to go back to the spaces and places that I know have hurt, that I know are painful. That is almost potentially looking at the past and saying, I know what's that way. I know what that pain looks like. That is something that is too energetically painful. And that is that affirmation of staying very much in the present. So you can see that a lot of the energy right now that's going through this energetic healing that's coming through, that may even require a little bit of catharsis and rest, may be feeling very much like you coming into that moment of just staying very present and grounded in the moment, and feeling like even that is just enough to do, because that's that moment of saying, like, as long as I stay grounded in the moment, you're breaking effectively an energetic pattern, because you're not returning to a past that caused you some degree of difficulty or harm, or you're not seeing something that can move into a space of healing from those past situations and scenarios. As we say, we don't go back to the sword store looking for puppies or kittens. We only go back to the sword store to find more swords. But for some of the energy right now, that is that affirmation of someone saying, we're not going to go back to what we used to do, because that was not a good thing to do, right? That's that affirmation of accountability that's potentially leading to breakthroughs in observing the sword store. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union, the ability to look back right now only exists in the moment that you recognize, I'm no longer in the past. So that ability of feeling a new level or degree of contentment, maybe potentially even moving into a divine dynamic where you don't feel like things are so difficult, you feel like things are easy. It may sting. You may be saying to yourself, why am I hurting now? Well, the reason you're hurting is because you're just finally allowing a space for a wound to be observed. You're finally moving into a space that it is safe to look at something because you're no longer experiencing it. So that's why we see that for a lot of the energy in this modality, this can feel a little bit confusing, because it can almost be that moment of saying to yourself, if I am so happy, why am I so sad? If I am so happy about the present, why can't I stop thinking about the past? Because you're healing the past. That is that moment that the past is returning back to you because it's trying to show you something that you can now see in new eyes, having now been in a space that feels like it is built in a place that is fostering your own healing energy. So we see there that that is some of that heart expansion that may be occurring right now for a lot of energy, recognizing that a heart expansion doesn't just mean I feel happy all the time. It just means I feel more. Masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency, this modality, this ability, this identification point of what feels like it is requiring some unpacking here. This is what I told you about, like feeling energetically for the energy in the divine union frequency, that feeling when like you're trying to like redecorate a room and like half the room is a total mess and you're like, I just need to take a break. I just need to take a nap. I just need to go get a glass of water. Like, this is where we're seeing that some of the energy is right now, because I told you it's a little less of a breakthrough energy right now for the energy in the divine union frequency. It's going to feel more like a little bit of an energetic headache, if you will. Because you're almost saying to yourselves, why did we even start unpacking this stuff? Because again, that is that moment that we're recognizing and realizing that ability to do that relationship upkeep, that ability to recognize what doesn't necessarily serve you, to be able to continue to come into that sense of personal growth and understanding, that is the gift and the beauty of the divine union frequency. It's almost creating that space where you can energetically unpack things in order to ask yourself, am I doing this because it's necessary, or am I doing this because it is habit, right? That ability to almost have someone energetically there to say to you, like, and show you these things in a way is what is creating that path of refinement, if you will. Continuing to get, it's hard though. It can be frustrating. And we see here even energetically right now, there may be some energy right now in the divine union frequency that is feeling some of the pressure of that, because it's not easy, but it is necessary. Continuing to get the clarity on these cards right now between our Fool card in combination with our Four of Swords. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the Temperance card. I need to tell you right now, I want everybody to count to 10. I want everybody to drink their water today. I don't want any of you getting into this space or place of getting short with someone, getting frustrated, because what's happening right now? There's a little bit of this energy that we're seeing right now, especially in the energy in the divine union, that may be amplifying in some feelings of frustration. Why? Because I told you. There's something that we're seeing here in the divine union frequency and having to address where you are presently while also looking at the past. I'm telling you, there's something about this right now that almost feels like it wasn't necessarily, this was intentional, but not necessary. So even now, that moment of having to take a little bit of a breather from it feels like a little bit of a stepping back, if you will. But we see that even now that ability to do so doesn't mean that someone or something is moving away from something for the sake of abandoning something. This is almost creating that like energetic walk head space, right? Stepping away from a problem to get a better sense of perspective. So we see even now that for the energy in the divine union frequency, there may even be this feeling right now of effectively needing to create a little bit of energetic space for each other. But we're seeing that moment and that identity, that ability to see something and say, I just need to put a little bit of air here. That is that sense that it doesn't feel, I need to stress this, it doesn't feel like someone moving into the act of abandoning a circumstance or situation. That's almost that energy of someone saying like, I need to take a walk. I need to go do something. I need to go somewhere to clear my head so that I can approach a problem or situation with a better sense of clarity. That is the gift that the energy in the divine union is providing one another at this time, and being able to amplify and articulate that. I'm going to say even now, the gift of the divine union right now in expressing that one is taking that little walk or that little journey away from something for the sake of the thing itself is the gift of the divine union, because that's that moment of, again, feeling that energetic connection, even in moments that you're not necessarily moving in lockstep, because that's that moment that amplifies the difference between codependence versus having that ability of having unique experiences that help give you different perspectives that you're then able to put back into your energetic connection. Masculine and feminine energy in coming into the divine union frequency right now, this could be feeling that sense of energetic headspace, that moment that may be feeling a little bit more contemplative today is the best way that I can describe this, because this sense of contemplation, as it were, this contemplativeness is that moment that you're looking and observing the present situation where you find yourself coming into, potentially even feeling like you found divine union, that suddenly feels like it is emotionally painful. So if there's energy right now that's coming into the divine union, and they're having that feeling of going, if everything's going so well, why do I feel so awful? It's because this is that moment that you're finally able to get that clarity and look back and really unpack what it may have taken to find that energetic frequency. It's not like everything gets lost in the wash. It's the fact that you recognize that you've been carrying it with you, and only now are you fully able to experience it. And it may create that sense in you of anxiety, of fear, of uncertainty, because it's the value and the preciousness of what you've effective energetically found right now that can sometimes amplify in a feeling of energetic confusion, because it's that sense of easement that immediately brings with it occasionally that sense of anxiety. Right? So we see even now that ability right now to understand and identify, to process that, because what we see and love about this energy right now is, for a lot of the energy in the divine union, this is the overcoming of an abandonment wound. Because this isn't allowing oneself to just react from an abandonment wound. This is giving yourself a patience. And if you're feeling that, saying, what is that? Why do I feel that? Letting yourself probe and move into a state of inquiry, as opposed to just letting it be a space or place of reactivity. Masculine and feminine in separation, this is also that moment of potentially overcoming an abandonment wound, because there could even be a lot of that energetic feeling right now of sadness, of loss, in relationality to what you're effectively or energetically letting go of. There could be that feeling right now that feels like, I need to feel like that amplification of, again, kind of pushing through some kind of energetic or spiritual barrier, if you will. Because this is that moment of recognizing and identifying, making the intentional choice of not going back to something for the sake of what you know is best, that may feel like, again, that feeling of anxiety that is feeling almost like, again, and a lot of the energy going through this right now is allowing themselves that sense of saying, I'm not moving away, I'm not closing a door, I'm moving into a space or place of identifying and recognizing with the hope that something will change, and understanding that going back to something isn't going to allow for that change to occur. I need to let this propel me forward with the sense of letting something rest and the hope that it might come back in a way that feels like it is better aligned towards me. So we see even now, for a lot of the energy doing that work, it's heavy, it's hard, but that's that moment of overcoming the abandonment wound and saying, I'm moving forward into the future with the hope of what lies on the other side that I cannot see. Masculine and feminine energy coming into a space or place of restoration over circumstances of this nature, you are seeing that change. You may even be seeing right now that energetic change that is calling to mind the past experiences versus what you are now seeing today. And that ability of seeing something and saying, I know how someone would have energetically moved in the past. They're showing me very presently that they're not doing that anymore. Someone not moving in a space or place of having their triggers override or overrule their intentionality is affirming to a lot of energy right now that sense of saying, yes, what someone is saying to me, I am seeing the tangible expression of, because this is the difference between someone saying that they have healed versus showing that they have healed through not following the same patterns that one may have led to points of pain in the past. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Swords in combination with our Ten of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Hermit card. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. I'm telling you right now, there may be something right now that feels like there is something about requiring or needing a little bit of energetic isolation. I'm going to stress this. This is the difference between someone just dipping off and zipping away and not giving any indication on what they're doing versus someone saying, I just need a little bit of space to energetically clear my head. I just need a little bit of time to process some of the things that we've been unpacking, right? That ability to recognize and understand that what you've been going through right now, especially if there's been a lot of this heavy energetic work occurring right now in the divine union frequency, the ability and the gift of giving each other a little bit of time to clear one's headspace while recognizing and saying to someone, I'm not moving away from this because I don't want to confront it. I need to take a little time to absorb what we're going through. I need a little bit of time to process how I'm feeling, is effectively the energetic gift that we provide in the divine union frequency, because that is the difference of someone effectively chasing an abandonment wound and saying, this is hard, I'm going away, versus someone saying, this is hard, I'm staying in this, I'm staying committed to this, I need to figure out a better way to tackle something here. So we see that even now, a lot of that energy, this may feel like a little bit more of that energetic solitude, even in the divine union frequency. But that's that gift of being able to feel like solitary together, as opposed to feeling like someone is abandoning you. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. This is that moment that you may feel a little bit more of that sense of solitude, but that sense of solitude is almost coming from a state or space of feeling like what you have with another person, you don't need to constantly monitor. It's like that sense of easement, because it's that feeling of connection that is almost inevitable here, right? This is almost the goal and aspiration energetically that we effectively feel, because it's almost that feeling that amplifies that even when one is in solitude, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're in solitude because you're still in that vibration. You still feel that connection. And we see even now that ability to feel that ability to feel that shift in you that occurs is making you reassess and experience in a way a lot of the things that may have led you to this point thus far, because it's that's the point of the wisdom coming in. That's the moment when you're suddenly there that you can look back and go, oh, what was all of that before I got here? So we see even now a lot of that energy right now may be feeling a lot of this deeper understanding that is coming into play in relationality to your own past experiences, having found yourself on the journey of coming into divine union. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, this is that feeling that I told you is the energetic weight, the anchor, the deep weight and anchor of doing what one knows is right versus what one feels is easy. So we see that for a lot of the energy right now that's moving forward in this way, it's heavy work. We see even now that for a lot of the energy right now that's moving away from something, I told you, some of this energy doesn't feel like they're going to be coming into connection anytime soon, because this is that energy that's almost not doing this for the sake of saying they're choosing another connection over someone. They're almost making the intentional choice and saying, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing the alignment with my path, and the hope and aspiration that you'll be able to someday join me on it. So this could be a lot of energy right now, almost communicating and trying to take that time to themselves to help someone understand and articulate the difference between effectively leaving someone behind versus saying to someone, I'm doing this because I care. I'm doing this because I energetically love you. I'm doing this because I know it is the right thing to do, even if it's not the easy thing. So we see even now that this is creating that sense of I want to say energetic heaviness, but also determination, because this is that moment of effectively feeling that that heavy gut energy that we see and feel and experience when we know that we are doing what we need to follow the right path. It's not easy work, but it's necessary. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that's in resolution, that's coming into healing because something here occurred that allowed for some of this shift energetically, this ability of seeing now situations from the past and not having them repeating a cycle, seeing the energetic shift that is occurring in a moment that may be pronouncing, it's almost like that aha moment, because this is that moment that is foundationally showing the difference between an energy that says that they're ready to heal, that says that they're in alignment with you, that says that they're ready to change, versus someone who's showing it very clearly through their own objectivity, through their own path of discernment, through their own ability to articulate and assess what wasn't working to be able to facilitate what is. So I told you, it's like a lot of this like energetic heaviness right now, because it's that feeling and weight of doing what you know is necessary, but seeing already that glimmer that is the right directionality to move. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Swords in its reversal in combination with our 4 of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? This card keeps popping up right now. Same card as yesterday. Making that decision, making that choice, being very intentional in relationality to the choices that you're making. So we see even now energetically, for a lot of the energy in separation, one of the things that we find is very beautiful here is the fact that we see there's a lot of consideration that's being put into the way that you're moving right now. You're not just letting yourself come into that state of reactivity. You're not just letting yourself move towards those things because you feel an energetic connection towards them. It's not that you don't still feel that sensation. It is that you are tackling it in a different way. You are allowing that moment of pausing and reflecting and saying, I recognize that I feel that pull towards someone. I recognize that I feel that pull and call towards a certain direction. I'm not going to move in that directionality just because I feel it. I'm going to ask myself if that is the path that I want to proceed upon. So that ability to discern the difference between the energetic feeling versus intentionality is what is either, again, allowing for a lot of path work of healing right now, for energy that is moving forward, utilizing their own intentional choice, even while they're holding the weight and heaviness of what they're effectively releasing as they proceed forward from this point. That's that energetic healing coming back to the self, as well as the energy right now that is potentially seeing some point of restoration that is occurring and relationality to situations and circumstances with energy where you may be seeing that there is pattern breaking that is occurring. Someone not necessarily allowing themselves to come into a point of reactivity, but utilizing the powers of, again, discernment, intentionality to help pave the way going forward. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. The moment that you're in that frequency, the moment that you found that effectively, is the moment that you suddenly realize that you haven't even begun your work, because that feeling of heaviness is amplifying and looking at everything that may have occurred prior to the moment of coming into divine union with the new perspective that you find yourself in. It's almost coming up right now so you can look at things from a different point of view, because it may be that amplification of seeing that something that you thought was one way prior to being in the divine union, you're now looking at with a whole new different set of eyes, because you're energetically in a different place. So it takes a reconsideration point to be able to ascertain if you still feel in the same way that you felt at the time that those things occurred. Masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union, you can see why this is going to feel more like messy, halfway point, like halfway operation type of energy, because we saw that over the last few days there's been a lot of energetic unpacking that's occurring. Feminine wanting to move one way, masculine wanting to move another, utilizing this power of showing each other the clear version of the self, what one aspires to be able to break any uncomfortable patterns, finding what works, being able to shed what doesn't. That's heavy energy. This is the energetic spiritual spring cleaning that a lot of the energy right now in the divine union is experiencing. And this is that moment that today almost feels like taking a little bit of a breather from it. giving each other a bit of that energetic break, but not, I need to stress this, not because you're leaving something undone, but so that you can get into a better head space to help you come into the space of making mutual decisions going forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Cups, our Nine of Cups, and our Seven of Swords. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, we love this. We've got here our Queen of Swords. I told you, masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency. One of the things that is energetically happening, as it were, is the fact that it is having a different energetic impact on these energies. We went very heavily into discussing what was occurring with the masculine energy yesterday. If you missed it, you can find it over on the video on my YouTube. The masculine energy was going through something that I need to stress may feel a little bit like this, because we saw that a lot of the masculine energy yesterday, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, was trying to navigate how to feel grounded through what could almost energetically be expressed as emotional overwhelm. We even saw yesterday a lot of the masculine energy, feeling a bit of that emotional overwhelm coming into play, doing a lot of work not to effectively energetically subject someone to your emotions, but instead to articulate on the emotions, right? We saw that for a lot of the masculine energy yesterday, there may have been a little bit of that feeling of being like, I would really like to subject someone to my emotions instead of being able to articulate upon them. So we saw that even yesterday that may have been coming to the surface, but that was a deep energetic grounding exercise that was coming through for a lot of the masculine energy, for feeling that and being able to feel something and not letting yourself come into a reactivity state over how you were feeling. It was almost amplifying how much you've potentially changed while being in the energetic union energy. Masculine and feminine today is working through that same path work, and it's amplifying itself not as a feeling of energetic overwhelm. What's the feminine learning through it? Resilience. Feminine energy is going through that energetic pathwork of resilience, feeling what they're feeling, but coming into a state or space of energetic empowerment, not letting it create a space of overwhelm. That is also the recognition point that feminine is potentially energetically feeling right now as it relates to what is effectively been shifting with these energies as they continue deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. Masculine, it's not surprising that we see that you're dealing with a lot of this like energetic overflow, because you're letting yourself feel and experience things that you may have had closed off because of the inner child wound that you're now healing in the divine union frequency. Feminine is being resilient as they see the masculine doing this, because this is feminine energy that, again, these energies are helping each other through this. Feminine is continuing to create a safe space wherein masculine can learn to emotionally regulate their overflow, not in a way of saying you can't, but finding that way that feels like it is effective and powerful. Feminine is also doing that work right now. And this is how the feminine is learning from the masculine, because masculine's own ability of being resilient through that, wanting to knuckle down on their emotions, that is the gift that the feminine is learning in the divine union frequency right now, because that's the feminine going, I could take a page from their book. Bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Both of these energies right now doing a lot of heavy energetic path work, but you can see how it's very similar. You can also see, while it might need to take a little bit of that energetic pushing away, as it were, as you navigate, and this is that blending. Remember I told you that the masculine needed to slow down for the feminine needed to speed up? These are these energies coming into alignment to do that, but almost taking a little time away from one another to come into alignment as they do that. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This recognition point, this breakthrough, is potentially going to feel most expressive right now in the feeling of potentially, if you're coming into divine union for the first time, you may be feeling like you're having a lot of these revelatory moments in relationality to things that may have occurred in the past. It's like that moment of being like, oh, like that moment of understanding that you finally have once you're in a vibration that it is helping you get a better perspective on things. For masculine and feminine, this can sometimes feel rather overwhelming, because that moment of going, oh, like it feels a bit like, sometimes almost can feel a little bit like a sense of crisis potentially comes through, because that's that moment of being like, why am I feeling so good? Why is it that everything's going well and my brain is going like it's going crazy? It's like, because your brain is trying to show you something that you weren't ready to see in the right way. They're like bringing it back to you right now to be like, do you still feel the same way about this? Do you still feel the same way about this? You're in this new vibration. Do you still feel it? It's like they're popping up in a way that's almost creating that space or place to help you reorient those experiences based on where you presently are. For masculine, we saw that may have felt very emotionally overwhelming yesterday. Why? Because you're recognizing and experiencing and understanding that some of the work that you've found in terms of coming into divine union had more to do with the fact of your own personal path work. And when we have those moments of recognizing our own personal path work, that can sometimes be overwhelming, because that's when we start to accidentally do that difficult work of being overly critical on the past version of self for what the present version of self knows. We don't do that here. We don't do that. We're not going to hold the past self accountable in the sense of blaming them for not understanding what you understand now, because that past version of self carried the future version of self to where you are now. That's why we need to be masculine energy. Experiencing some of that overwhelm may have had to be like giving oneself a little bit of grace and recognizing that you can only find yourself at the moment that you find yourself. That's that moment that we hold grace and empathy for any past version of self that didn't necessarily see things from the way that you see them now. Feminine energy, you're also doing that same work right now of coming into divine union. You are also recognizing that the path into divine union, you didn't just stumble into it. You move there with a lot of intentionality, and the more that you're able to find yourself, the more that you're able to come into alignment. It is also very important. I'm going to say the same exact message for feminine coming into divine union. Don't hold that past version of self overly accountable for not knowing and experiencing and having the resiliency that you now find yourself having. Recognize that past version of self carried the ball to the present version of self. If it wasn't for that past version of self, you would never find yourself where you are now. So for both masculine and feminine energy, overcoming that overwhelm and not being, this is not saying that you don't want to say that you were perfect. This is the opposite. This is holding a space and saying, I did what I could do the best I could do it. And I could do things differently now, but I recognize and understand that I've learned things along the way. That is the evolution or amplification, if you will, of someone coming into a better sense of themselves, but also holding the grace for what every other version of themselves that led them to this point did to create that sense of one's own being. So for a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, this could feel like a lot of that breakthrough energy, and we don't want to fall back out of it by feeling that frustration or anger at the past version of self, or trying to run back to fix what the past version of self couldn't fix. Being able to recognize and identify through the powers of understanding and discernment what feels like it is best for you and relationality to how you move forward from this point. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, this is learning that act of resilience. Did you think the healing energy was something that was just going to make you all soft and gooey? No. The healing vibration is one that you make hard choices. The healing vibration is when you choose to do what you know is right as opposed to what is easy. The healing journey is hard for that reason, for that express reason. For masculine energy, it often brings forth a state of emotional overwhelm, because making the choice to do what is right versus what is easy feels very emotionally overwhelming, because that is that heart opening exercise. For feminine energy, that is the expression of resilience in the relationality of setting boundaries, because making the choice to do what is right as opposed to what is easy is almost that moment of trying to facilitate healing by coming into a stance of stoicism for oneself. So we see that for both of these energies right now, this is feeling very difficult. For feminine, this is having to effectively hold a boundary around someone or something that you don't desire to hold a boundary towards. But that ability to do, though, is that act of love that comes through and saying, under no circumstances can I accept this in this modality. For masculine, what's so difficult about this is masculine potentially feeling like they need to push away someone energetically, saying, I know you don't believe this, but I'm doing this for our own good. feeling immediately that that's creating almost a sense of reactivity in some of the feminine energy that feels defensive, that you're effectively like trying to say something, that you're trying to show them something about themselves that they may not necessarily recognize and see within themselves at this time. We see that for both of these energies right now, that act is like, again, I told you, that pushing out, that giving of love, and almost recognizing and saying, I know that this is not the easy thing to do, but I have to do it because I know it is what's right, is immediately the healing coming back to the self. And even now, it's creating that moment of coming very much into a sense of grounding and acceptance, not even doing something with the amplification of where it's going to lead you, just trying to stay grounded in the present and doing what you know is right at this moment. It's going to feel like a lot of reorientation, if you will, as you kind of ground into that modality, right? A lot of this energy that I'm seeing here is like grounding very much into the present moment to help them against any of that energy that they're feeling like they're doing right now that feels like it's pulling them one direction or another, right? That's the finding of oneself. Masculine and feminine that are coming into points of restoration over situations and circumstances of this nature is being amplified and potentially seeing, not just hearing, energetically seeing someone and being like, you've changed. Like looking at someone being like, you have changed. And for masculine and feminine energy right now, again, that is potentially the masculine coming back to the feminine and saying, I did change. You put up boundaries and I changed. Like that's a masculine almost saying, I did. And that's that moment we almost see a lot of the masculine energy saying to the feminine, thank you. Thank you for giving me those boundaries. Thank you for walking away from me at a time that I did not find myself. Because had it not been for you doing that, I never would have been able to go on the journey of finding myself to come back to you and respecting those boundaries, right? That is that moment for a lot of the feminine energy that feels very overwhelming because it's almost masculine energy amplifying and saying thank you for something that they were saying a different two words on when you may have effectively initiated it. For masculine energy in this modality right now, again, if this is that moment that is potentially leading to restoration or healing, this is coming through in a feminine energy that has the confidence and the resilience of their own self. Again, that's feminine energy that isn't coming into a space of being shiftable, adaptable, ever changing to be able to meet what they want to meet with you. That is feminine energy that knows who they are, what they want, holding those healthy boundaries. This is where we see that these energies right now are feeling the validation point. And even if this is masculine energy that is pushing that feminine energy away, it's almost that affirmation and saying, I hope one day you understand. I hope one day you understand why I'm doing this, even if I'm not presently seeing it. And for the feminine energy in separation, this is the feminine energy expressing that as well. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Temperance card in its reversal and our Hermit card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Wands in its reversal. Now, one of the challenges that we're effectively seeing right now for both masculine and feminine energy has to do with some kind of feeling or sensation right now that I want to best amplify as some kind of like, again, divine, like I got to just stress, if you're feeling a little exhausted today, if you're feeling like the energy is a little thick and heavy, this is probably why. This is a lot of that like moment that just feels like there's a lot of like density in this modality right now, okay? It's creating something that feels like a little bit more contemplative. It feels like a little bit more solitude-esque. For masculine energy right now specifically, I want you to be very kind to yourself at this time because I'm almost seeing here that there may be this like, there may be something happening right now for some of the masculine energy. I want to just say it may be feeling like a little bit of like brain fog. That's the best way I can describe it, like energetic or spiritual brain fog, if you will, because I told you this is why there's something that needs that like energetic like easement point, because this is that moment that needs like to like effectively clear the air, like just needs a minute. Someone going like, I just need to step back from this for a minute. And that's what I'm explaining again, the difference between someone saying, I don't want to deal with this, which is not divine union energy, versus masculine energy based in there. Bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, saying, I just need a minute so that I can just get like that mental clarity, if you will, to help me be able to better see a problem, right? This is the masculine energy, almost create like trying to like, I want to say like, sometimes you need to like step back from something to see the perspective on something in a clearer way. A lot of the masculine energy right now might be trying to like navigate some spaces of just needing a little bit of solitude, but that's not energy of masculine that's moving away from something due to a lack of desire to want to address it. That is masculine energy trying to get a better sense of internal perspective. Feminine, you may also be feeling that, but it's going to feel a little bit more empowering to you right now. For masculine, this is going to feel a little bit more frustrating, which is why I told you right now, masculine energy, make sure that you're not letting yourself get frustrated. Count to 10, drink your water. Don't let this be a moment, because these two cards together, we don't like that. This is that moment that some of the energy, if you like have a tendency of getting easily triggered, this could feeling like some of that energy of like triggering you today. So be a little mindful of that masculine energy. Feminine, if there's masculine energy around you today that just says they need to take a little walk, or they need to like move away from something that is like, you guys have been having like heavy conversations, just give them let them take the walk. Because this is that moment that is almost like validating and saying like, again, that's that definitive moment of recognizing the difference between someone saying, I don't want to deal with something, versus someone saying, I just need to clear my head. I just need to get a little air. I just need a little bit of like breathing room, right? So for the energy right now in the divine union, being mindful of the fact that both energies need some time to themselves, like that is the gift, that is the honor that we give energy when they are effectively asking for it, when they're articulating that need and that desire from a place of clarity and intentionality. Like that's something that the energy in the divine union can provide, because that's the difference between someone trying to say like walking away from something because they're not invested, versus someone saying, I'm very invested, I just need a little bit of space today. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, this is a lot of that moment of being like feeling the energetic overwhelm of how easy, how inevitable something is. It can almost feel a little bit energetically overwhelming right now to be in the divine union frequency. A lot of it being articulated in the understanding of what may have occurred in the past that brought you forward into that connection. And that energetic is the energetic equivalent that feels a little bit like I told you, that like head scramble moment, and finally being able to look back on the past with a new set of eyes. So even now, for a lot of the energy, I need to stress this right now, masculine. If there's masculine energy right now that's moving in this modality, this understanding on what you yourself were able to change of yourself to bring you into the divine union frequency, this is that moment that you may be holding a lot of frustration on that past version of self. Don't let that past version of self pull you back out into separation because of the overwhelming feeling of what you understand in the present moment of self, right? That same energy that you may be looking at right now and going, oh my gosh, what were you doing, is the same one that brought you to where you are today. So having that moment of like empathy and understanding and clarity for that past version of self, I need to stress this, the ability to look back on oneself and say, I would have done things differently had I known then what I know now, is a gift. It is the gift that we receive and provide and understand and recognize of how far we've come on our own journey. Letting that be the positive right now. It's going to feel a lot of, there's a lot of that, like, it's like, this is feeling like that frustration moment that like is almost the frustration of the self, like overriding the fact that that should be an accomplishment, even though it's a heavy accomplishment, right? It's not really that, it's like, that's what wisdom is, right? It's like the accomplishment that's not met with a sense of pride so much as it comes with profound understanding. So for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency, it's like that feeling of wisdom, that sinking in may feel somewhat overwhelming right now. Feminine energy, you're also having the same exact feeling right now if you're coming into divine union, though it may be more directed towards the energy that was in a, like, that you were potentially trying to move forward into divine union with in the past. That's going to feel a little bit more like outward expressed instead of inwardly faulty, is the best way I can put that. Masculine and again, having grace for your own self and recognizing that that's not a moment of holding too much accountability on the energy. This is the path work for the feminine here. Don't be looking at the energy prior to this with a state of blame or too much blame or accusatory energy. Recognizing and identifying that your own ability to find boundaries and do that is also a part of that path work as well, right? That's that work of recognizing the accountability in directionality to what is within your own ability to change versus what you experienced. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is why it feels so energetically difficult right now for a lot of the energy that's moving forward at this time, because it's not the energy of masculine or feminine that's moving forward into they're not thrusting full tilt into another connection here. This is the feminine and masculine energy in separation, almost making that choice of going towards oneself, choosing oneself, if you will, and the path ahead, not knowing what is on the other side of it, but just holding the manifestation goal at play. And for masculine and feminine right now, there's a lot of that, I told you, that self-judgment, that moment that feels a little bit muddy and difficult. Because for feminine energy, this is that moment, if you're trying to move away from a masculine that you feel that energetic connection with, you feel that passion connection with. This is that moment that may feel like a lot of internal questioning, because the need and desire that you feel for that energy is still there. That's not the problem, right? That's not the problem. That is the problem, if you will. That is the modality of recognizing the amplification on looking at something and saying that there's a desire to see something that is built in a more robust fashion, as opposed to something that is just being held together by the passion connection. The problem with the passion connection is it's like a spark. It immediately connects us. We have to be more discerning in relationality to that connection because it's so easily lit. So we see that for a lot of the energy of feminine right now, assessing what you feel that passionate connection to is what's allowing for a lot of insight and self-exploration right now as you proceed forward, because a lot of this feminine energy is utilizing those boundaries, but the boundaries exist within the self. You recognize they're not what you put out towards other people. That's the internal boundary. Masculine energy, you're also potentially going through this right now. Again, doing that tough love effectively. If you have to move away from someone, feeling like you're not necessarily in the same place or you're not necessarily on the same path work. This is going to feel like the internal struggle with fighting your own passion center. Because this is a moment that you're feeling a passion for an energy. You're also saying to yourself that you don't want that passion to put you in a space or place that's going to lead to an unhealthy karmic connection, right? This is that moment that may be feeling like you're doing a lot of work to conquer one's own self, to come into recognizing and wrestling with your own passion center, to move with intentionality going forward. So for both of these energies right now, I told you, you're on the same path work if you're in separation. While for the energy right now that's coming into restoration over this is the energy that's recognizing and realizing that something is no longer just based on the passion center. That's potentially feeling the expression of the masculine coming into that emotional centering that's leading to a point of healing. While for feminine, this is that moment of, again, holding a point of resilience, not trying to change too much for a masculine energy, just recognizing what is and is not in alignment. So even if this is a path of restoration right now, a lot of it might be the observation point and what wasn't working in the past to be able to have a better sense of clarity in the present. For masculine and feminine energy right now, again, for all of this work, this is heavy. I told you, there's a lot of heaviness here today. And it may even feel like some points of confusion. Let this be a moment or opportunity to kind of ground and focus on what your manifestations goals are, what your priorities are. Let that kind of help you orient as you move forward through this energy right now. Don't let yourself get triggered through any of those feelings, because even now, we see that a lot of that frustration may come into play today. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hermit card in combination with our Judgment card. Look at this. This is why we need some of that me time. This is why we need some of this me time. Help you think. May I please get one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our star in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now. In the divine union frequency, one of the things that we're effectively seeing that's happening right now is, again, that need or that desire for some kind of point of solitude as it relates to circumstances or situations. This is why we don't want energy right now effectively feeling triggered if someone says that they need a little bit of that breathing room, as it were. Specifically because for feminine, a lot of this work right now has to do, and again, we just see a lot of this back and forth that's happening right now for the energy in the divine union frequency. Feminine energy going through a lot of self-assessment, a lot of this work right now, a lot of this like work through right now in relationality to feminine, working through, we keep seeing this coming through right now for the energy of the divine union frequency. Feminine energy, okay, this is really, okay, so this is a very, I told you, it's this problem with this silk to steel thing that keeps coming through. Feminine energy is trying to find the midway point between having a point of resilience without losing their own vulnerability, their own softness, their own core center, if you will. So that's why we even see now for a lot of the feminine energy, finding that moment, that modality in between where one feels like you can be vulnerable versus where you need to be strong. A lot of this right now for feminine, this is where we see the feminine needs a little bit of me time as well, because this is, again, I told you, these energies are challenging each other. They're trying to bring each other not into what they desire and aspire the other one to be, but helping them recognize what they've told the other they aspire to be, to help them come into that right now. So for feminine, this is a lot of that self-exploration in terms of recognizing a lot of their own doubts, a lot of their own uncertainties, right? Because we keep seeing that something that the masculine energy is saying to the feminine in the divine union frequency is, I see that you doubt yourself too much. I see that you doubt your own directionality. So again, that is that moment of the feminine almost going into isolation or solitude to push their own self into what they feel is the authentic, vulnerable expression of themselves while also being somewhat resilient, right? Feminine's trying to find that midpoint. Masculine's trying to do it too, but that is coming more from a state of a masculine having to ground through a lot of emotional upheaval right now, that heart opening exercise. This is tricky work. But we see here for both of these energies, it's really important. And I need to stress this because I can already see some of this energy right now taking things the wrong way. If there's energy right now that needs some solitude, recognize the difference between someone saying that they need a few minutes to themselves. The difference between someone saying, I don't want to deal with something, versus someone saying, I need some time for myself in order to deal with something. Those are different things. And we see even now that that could lead to a little bit of trickiness in the divine union frequency. Even in the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine energy, this is that breakthrough moment. This is that understanding that's potentially coming as you enter the heart of the divine union frequency, because we see a lot of this energy kind of moving into that moment right now. It's having a different impact on masculine and feminine. Masculine, it's feeling a lot of weight and potential over-criticalness on the past version of self, the choices the past version of self may have made that may have not led to divine union, right? That's that ability of looking at one's own past version of self and saying, what if I done this? What if I done that, right? There's a lot of the what ifs that are coming through right now for the masculine. For the feminine, this is going to feel more like the feminine looking back at situations and circumstances and feeling the weight of responsibility and how vulnerable the feminine may have been in circumstances or situations, understanding that that over vulnerability may have led again to a lot of the feminine energy, like abandoning themselves for what was being received as opposed to what they knew that they desired or deserved. So even now that point of understanding and clarity is having a different impact on masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. It can be overwhelming. The reason it's coming up is so you can reprocess it and re-experience it through new eyes. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this ability or this understanding of recognition, as it were, being able to effectively have a moment. And we see that for both masculine and feminine, if this is path work where they are doing that tough love, you're energetically pushing someone away and you're not doing it to hurt someone. You're doing it because you feel like it is truly the right thing. It is the act of love that is articulated in the act of sacrifice and saying, I care about you, but this isn't what's best for us. I care about you, but I aspire for something better. That ability of saying, I love you, but I know I'm doing these things that I know are necessary because I want to facilitate a positive pathway potentially moving forward for both of us. That gift is effectively that moment right now of choosing solitude, almost amplifying the difference in not moving away from someone for the sake of someone else, saying, I'm doing this not because there's someone energetically there. I'm doing this because you are the focal point, but I also can't accept things under these circumstances and situations. For masculine and feminine, it is very difficult. For masculine, this is going to feel like, again, fighting against your own passion center that wants to bring you forward towards a feminine, but feeling like, again, that feminine is potentially, it's not in their best interest to be with you because they're contorting themselves too much to adapt to you. For feminine, this is having that moment of feeling that, again, the passion center that you have with a masculine hasn't built up the robust connection that you effectively aspire and desire for. So in a way, it's almost requiring you to push against the desire center for hope that the masculine will recognize and understand what they need to energetically facilitate in terms of what they can give, instead of that sense of desire and want driving you forward in a connection. So we see that for both of these energies right now, this is that moment of questioning your own self, because in a way, it feels like you're battling yourself as you move forward and you do what you know is the right choice. For the energy right now that is coming into resolution or healing over moments like this is that moment of, again, observation. This is potentially energy that is energetically observing and saying, potentially masculine coming to a feminine and saying, I was coming towards you from a place of entirely investiture and desire and need instead of trying to give forth. For feminine, this is that moment of saying, I was becoming far too adaptable. I was allowing myself to be too flexible. My lack of resiliency was making it impossible for us to have a connection because I was effectively moving too far off my own path. So a lot of this like catharsis potentially coming through in some connections right now may not necessarily even lead to the energetic pathways coming back into union, but it's allowing for the kind of healing that you receive when you're on a healing path and you're just trying to make something amends with someone in a state or space of recognizing what you would have adjusted or accommodated or changed. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now and you can see how these energies right now holding themselves incredibly accountable at a moment that they may find themselves on the journey. Right? These energies both feel like they're not necessarily in a place where they're feeling particularly proud of themselves because they feel what they're doing is so hard. But that's because that ability, that is humility. That is the humility of saying, I don't feel happy about what I'm doing because what I'm doing is difficult, but it's still right? But feeling awful at the same time. There's a word for that. It's called humility, right? Masculine and feminine, continuing to get clarity on this between our Judgment card in combination with our Queen of Swords. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, this is why it's so hard. Because this is that moment that the energy that's doing this work, it feels awful to potentially do, because doing the right thing doesn't necessarily feel like it feels like the easy thing. These energies, to a certain extent, they feel like they are restricting a connection that they would rather give towards. And that's why we see even now, it feels like that energetic feeling that can feel so difficult, because it almost creates that space or place of energetically questioning oneself, saying, am I doing the right thing? Right? So we see even now that energy that's going through that process of saying to themselves, doing the hard thing and saying, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. You're probably doing the right thing. Like, do you see that? The fact that you're doing something that's hard enough that you're saying, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. That's probably the first sign that you're doing the right thing, because you're having that moment and you're not just kind of doing the thing that you feel you want to do. You're doing it with a sense of careful consideration in what is best. And having that moment of uncertainty usually amplifies the fact that that is probably the right decision, because it's not necessarily the easy one. For feminine, that is creating a boundary point, not letting the energetic or passion connection sustain what doesn't feel like it is healthy or productive and growing and thriving in a positive way. Has to be like that way of effectively almost energetically ending something for the hope and aspiration of coming into a point of healing, right? For masculine, this is that moment of wanting to build a sense of resiliency in a feminine in terms of their own confidence of self that is almost, again, requiring you to almost energetically push someone away at a time that you aspire and desire not to, for the sense or sake of saying to someone, I know you don't realize this, but I hope that the day will come where you will understand that that was the necessary work at that time, because I could see that you are not, like, I can see that aspiration of who you truly desire to be. And I saw that you were moving too far off the mark in order to be and facilitate a connection with me. For both of these energies right now, you can see the type of energetic work that that's effectively taking, but it's almost that sense of feeling that validation point of, again, most amplified in the difference between what one desires to do versus what one feels in their heart is the right thing to do. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into restoration or resolution, this is the energetic equivalent of someone saying to another, I understand why you had to do those things. I get it. I recognize that now. I get that clarity, right? For masculine and feminine. And what's lovely about this energy here is that is energy that's not necessarily doing it with the outcome of trying to generate a connection. This is almost the energy doing it from a point of feeling like it is the right thing to do, right? Because when you're on that healing journey, you want to like come into that point of resolution, if you will. So for feminine energy and masculine, even at this time right now, we see that for a lot of the feminine energy, having the masculine coming forward in this way, this is almost the masculine energy that is like articulating their own ability of coming into a point of accommodation, because they're giving forth to feminine. They're giving this to feminine, and they're not asking for anything back. They're just giving forth, right? That's the shift. And for feminine energy right now, this is one of those modalities that we're effectively seeing for masculine. If there's a resolution point here, a restoration point, this is potentially someone coming back and saying, I understand why you had to push me away at a time that I didn't know who I was. And I was becoming too much what I thought you aspired me to be instead of who I desired to be. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, coming into divine union, this is that sense of understanding that comes through when you're coming into the divine union frequency. And it feels a lot like that moment of like understanding, like deep understanding by feminine and masculine. And even now it's that moment that you may be feeling the strength and amplification of coming into the divine union frequency carries this like very heavy anchor of deepening understanding of the past journey that you now recognize is where the facilitation of the healing point begins. Because how can you heal something if you haven't moved into a space or place that you're no longer experiencing it? So we see even now that heaviness that's almost like that feeling of like groundedness that's coming in. That's almost the expression of the energy entering into the divine union frequency by that like deepening of the past journey and the deepening and the density that occurs in understanding what may have led to that point. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, this is doing some of that unpacking in the process. You're already in the heart of the divine union frequency. You've been unpacking some of these things, but the thing is about this is a lot of this is that energetic equivalent of addressing and assessing how much has changed from the time that you entered the divine union frequency to now. And it's giving me a lot of this like midpoint in energetic spring cleaning. And this is why we see there's a little bit of that like break point today, just taking a little time away from something, especially if you've been doing a lot of this heavy energetic work, just to get a better perspective on things. Masculine and feminine are doing that. They're clearing their head energetically to feel like that sense of doing, like, again, getting a better feeling, because what do we see is happening here for the energy in the divine union frequency. Not wanting to lead with your emotions, wanting to lead with your intentions and clarity. And that's why we see even now, if there's a lot of this like unpacking and it feels like it's been getting energetically heavy, a lot of this feels like that space of clearing to say like, I just need to energetically move away from something, not in a way of saying I want to get away from it, just to get a better clarity and perspective, right? And so a lot of that, we want to see that no one gets triggered today by some energy having that in the expression of the divine union, because that's the difference of someone saying like, I need to take a little walk to get a better sense of what we're doing here, versus someone saying I'm going, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the King of Wands and the Star, because you guys are matching each other right now in the divine union frequency. You see these two? May I please get one card to clarify? Two cards coming out to clarify. Look at that. So this is This is what we're saying here. Like literally, this is the conversation that some energy may be having right now, especially if they're asking for a little bit of space, right? Even in the divine union frequency. If this is a walk, if this is like getting a little bit of like breathing room, this is one of those moments that feels like it's the amplification point in saying to the difference between, again, what is the difference point between someone saying, I'm abandoning something, I'm walking away from something, versus someone saying, I'm moving, I need to create a little bit of space to get a better sense of what we're doing, right? This is like the difference between taking a walk to get inspiration versus like taking a walk to like forget your problems. So we see that a lot of this like work right now for the energy and the divine union frequency may just be kind of like putting yourself in a different space or place to get inspiration to help you motivate forward in a more productive fashion. So we even see right now energetically there may be something of trying to articulate that to the other energy so that the other energy doesn't take it personally. Please don't take it personally if you're in the divine union frequency right now and someone's trying to explain this to you, because that's a difference between someone like chasing after an abandonment wound and just like walking out the door versus someone saying like, I just need a little bit of like, I just need a minute to like get my head on straight. Okay. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. This is like a lot of that heavy energetic download that comes through at the moment that you recognize that you've entered the divine union frequency, because it's the minute that you're there that suddenly everything prior to that makes a hell of a lot more sense. It's like that moment of understanding that you're now, and even now we see that there's almost that feeling of like energetic like clarity that's coming through right now for both of the for the energetic counterparts coming into divine union. The easement of something coming into play, how simple it can be, is the recognition of how far you've gone to find yourself to make it that simple. And it is that amplification point in understanding both how much credit you need to give to yourself in terms of finding that for yourself, but also understanding everything that may have felt like a misstep in the past that was actually a deep lesson that was helping you get into a better understanding of yourself. Masculine and feminine energy right now, why we see that this energy right now in separation is so heavy and difficult, is that moment of feeling like, again, the investiture of what you're potentially walking away from. We see that a lot of this energy in separation right now, it isn't due to a lack of time, a lack of effort. It's the feeling of frustration in terms of feeling that one put a lot of considerable time, effort, and energy in something, and you haven't seen it yield the results that you would ideally aspire and desire it to. And this is almost that moment of the energetic signature of looking at something. And I told you, the energy almost questioning themselves as they go forward in this way and almost saying to themselves, I'm fresh out of ideas. There's like, this is literally energy that's doing that intentional work of asking themselves, even as they're separating from something here, and saying to themselves, is there anything else I can do beyond this? And if that answer is no, then that's that affirmation that this is the right direction to move forward in, even if there's an uncertainty in terms of what lies on the other side. Masculine and feminine that is coming into resolution over circumstances like this. This is seeing the energetic equivalent of someone coming forth and saying, I understand now. I understand how my past version of self made it impossible for us to be able to grow and change. That ability of looking at something and saying that is able to stop, and seeing someone presently not just saying something but doing something differently is affirming for a lot of the energy that there is something here that may have some kind of vitality to a connection, being able to come back into a state or space of positivity. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Star card in its reversal in combination with our Six of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please get one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. Look at this. We've got our Queen of Cups in its reversal. Look at this beautiful energy that we're seeing right now for the feminine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For feminine energy in the divine union frequency, again, a lot of this feminine, I need to stress this right now. This is really important. That's something that's happening right now for the feminine energy, okay? And I want to say this in a very careful, in a very discerning way. This is feminine energy processing and working through any moments of over vulnerability, looking at themselves right now from a point or perspective of resiliency. This is almost the feminine energy healing from anything that made them feel overly too much like the moment of having to be a victim of circumstances or a victim of the situations and circumstances around them, while also holding space for the fact that that may have occurred in the past, right? This is the feminine energy in the divine union frequency coming into a better amplification of their own sense of empowerment. And that's coming from a feminine energy that is feeling the full value of having the opportunity of being their most vulnerable, authentic expression of self, and recognizing that that's not necessarily creating it's creating like something that feels, I need to say, the energetic expansion of the feminine, which at the same time, I told you, the silk to steel, being incredibly, incredibly vulnerable, but also incredibly strong, right? Incredibly vulnerable, but incredibly strong. Not having to sacrifice one for the other. It is requiring some recalibration for the feminine energy in the divine union frequency to be able to find that harmonic pattern for themselves, wherein they feel like, again, how do you walk that tightrope where you're effectively vulnerable but strong in your vulnerability? That is what a lot of this path work for feminine is almost achieving right now. They're trying to find that place. It's going to feel like a little bit like a tightrope, right? It's a lot of that hip work. It's like finding that tightrope in terms of, again, finding that how do you stretch that? That's not taking one or the other. That's stretching. So while that's a heart-opening exercise for the masculine, this is more of an exercise of feminine coming into that sense of like strength and empowerment, of resilience, and finding the strength and vulnerability, but not letting themselves kind of like fall off of that tightrope, if you will, right? It's a bit of a dance. Masculine, this is that modality as well, because again, this is something that you're potentially helping the feminine find within themselves at this time. Just as the feminine is helping you find your more vulnerable side, showing you that it is a safe space that they're trying to cultivate for you to be your most authentic, vulnerable version of self, that heart expanding, you're also trying to facilitate a space or place with the feminine not leaning too heavily on you. Right? This is that moment that I told you, the difference between someone saying whatever you want versus saying I desire it too. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, trying to find that modality in recognizing feminine's own ability of being overly adaptable is almost that moment of encouraging the feminine energy to be in a space of place of, again, not abandoning their vulnerability, but being able to advocate for it in a way that doesn't lean on the masculine, but is almost the feminine coming into their own sense of empowerment. So we see even now for the masculine energy, there's something about working through this right now that you're also experiencing, because that is resulting, as it were, in this moment or modality of coming into a better understanding of who you are finding in the way of finding one another. You're both shifting and changing, and you're almost in a way reintroducing each other to one another as you come into a better sense of yourself, and you feel more comfortable coming into that vibration of self that you're revealing to the other through your connection. Masculine, and that's the breakthrough point here, basically. It's like reintroducing yourself to like the new version of self that you're finding as you continue further into that connection. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union. This is that point of insight and clarity that effectively is reached in moments or modality wherein you see and understand everything that may have occurred before prior to this point. That point of clarity and understanding that is reached, that suddenly gives you insight on what might not necessarily have worked in the past. For masculine, this is a little bit more energetically heavy. Because if these were situations and circumstances where you feel you weren't emotionally open or available that may have led to points of separation, this is why it can feel more like that point of personal accountability, because it's looking back on past connections and suddenly recognizing and realizing why the way you moved may have created a particular reactivity in feminine. And that's that moment of understanding that you're moving from a state of authenticity now that you wish that you may have desired to bring forth in past versions or connections with feminine. For feminine, this is that recognition and understanding of holding that point of resilience that may feel like the amplification of looking at the past version of self and being like, oh, you dear vulnerable thing. Like you didn't understand. You were more accepting of what wasn't for you. And even now we see that for both of these energies, that understanding and clarity, it feels a lot. It feels heavy, it feels dense, but it's also feeling like that sense of affirmation in relationality to getting a better sense of self in the process. Masculine and feminine that are in separation right now. This is why we see that this is so energetically heavy and hard right now, because this is energy that's potentially separating, not due to a lack of love, but for a profound effusion of love. The act or the gift of love that is almost articulating and saying, I care about you enough that I'm not doing what I desire. I am doing what I know is right. And for energetically, for the feminine right now, that's very hard, because this is the feminine energy that feels like this is feminine holding boundaries and recognizing the spaces and places that don't feel like they're giving back to them in kind. And that's the feminine energy almost calling back their energy around some circumstances or situations. It's that most amplified in saying, I love you, but not like that. I love you, but not like this. Like that is the bridge too far that is indicating potentially you are on different bridges. Masculine, you're having the same exact experience right now of coming into separation with the feminine that's almost saying to you, I will do anything to be with you. This is masculine saying, I would never ask you to do that because I love you and I don't want to see you change something internally within you for the sake of being in union with me. If that's that moment that you're trying to like bend or contort yourself, that's a masculine saying, I just came into understanding of myself. I can't see you do that to yourself. Energetically, for the energy coming into restoration on this is that moment of feminine potentially reaching and receiving from masculine that sense of apology. This is feminine, some of the feminine energy receiving that apology right now. And what's appreciative about that apology is this is almost masculine energy that's apologizing for the sake of saying, I'm not doing this to be able to come back into union with you. I'm doing it because you know, I want you to know. So even now that sense of restoration, it immediately creates a point of catharsis in feminine. While I have to stress that for a lot of the energy of masculine right now, even now, this is a masculine coming into that point of recognition. If this is healing of a masculine that brought something forth to a feminine that led to a rejection space, this is again the feminine clarity in terms of someone articulating and saying, I am completely in alignment with what you brought forth. It is the fact that you didn't lead with that. Like that is requiring even now more work on the connection between masculine and feminine to facilitate a more productive path going forward. While for the energy right now, again, that sense of doing the right thing is immediately creating the healing coming back towards you, because that's that moment of feeling that one is doing emotionally the right thing. For feminine, that's feeling like one is doing emotionally the right thing, knowing how one feels like you need to be treated and what you deserve, and utilizing that to set those boundaries. For masculine, it is potentially saying, I would rather have you at afar and have you at a point of happiness than recognize and see you shifting and changing and adjusting too much to try to come into alignment with me. That is that act of, that is that beautiful healing that immediately returns back to you in terms of getting in alignment on your path. And you can see to a certain extent what is effectively happening here in relationality to these right now, because what do we see that's happening? Do you see the shift that just occurred? How these two became these two? Why? In separation, these are energies right now that are doing the hard work of making the choice of what they intend and desire instead of what they just feel immediately internally driven to do. This is, again, these energies that are effectively facilitating that and effectively calling the halt to anything they feel is not moving in the directionality that they feel is productive or healthy for anyone involved. Again, pushing back against something and saying, I love you, but not like that. Masculine, immediately feeling that sense of empowerment and having that sense of coming into power over one's own self, being able to wrestle with your own passion, instead moving into a space of intentionality. Feminine, feeling that hard expansion exercise of, again, resisting moving into a connection that's just based on a passion space, but again, letting that be the expression of love, like almost not letting that close your heart space, but saying, I'm doing the hard thing because of my capacity for love. Clarification of these three cards. clarification coming through right now. What is it we have here? We've got here our Queen of Pentacles. So what occurs in that moment, effectively or energetically, where the feminine is again saying to themselves, I know I might not necessarily be doing what is the easy thing, but I'm doing what I know is the right thing. Feminine immediately feeling the grounding, coming into the grounding of the present, being able to feel like one is making the choices that are feeling energetically aligned for everyone, because this is not a feminine energy that's doing this from a point of you know, this isn't an energy that's holding themselves back from masculine for the sake of trying to hurt the masculine. This is feminine energy putting away from masculine as a sense of, again, saying, this is my healing. This is my aspiration. This is me trying to effectively ground and change for bringing forth something for the better. Masculine doing the same thing right now, potentially, if that was that moment of moving a feminine away from you that you feel was too adaptable, too changing to suit your needs and your desires, instead of like feeling like they're coming off of their own path work. This is masculine also saying like, I'm doing this to help you find that best version of self. I'm doing this to help you find your grounding. So we see that for both of these energies right now, it's potentially leading to new energetic connections. New energetic connections at a time that you feel like even a moment of saying, I don't think I'm ready for someone right now. It's like you are, because you just shifted into the person that you're effectively going to be in alignment with, that is effectively willing to do the same work, which is energy that's willing to do effectively the right thing instead of the easy thing. For masculine and feminine that are coming into a point of restoration around circumstances like this, this is that accountability vector coming into play. Seeing someone that's not just saying that they can make these changes, someone who's actually showing you, you can see visibly in how they're moving right now that there has been some kind of tangible shift that's occurred. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this observation point, this easement that you're potentially feeling, it's potentially having a little bit of a different trigger. I need to stress this right now. We need to talk about this, because some of this energy may fall into alignment over this. Masculine and feminine. Feminine feeling the security and stability of coming into divine union. The problem around here with masculine is masculine energy. If you just came into a point of alignment and recognizing what you could have changed from the past and the past version of self that would have brought about a different circumstance or conclusion in relationality to something that didn't lead to divine union, there's some energy here that may be thinking about, what about if I go back to the past to be able to facilitate that? So even now we see that a lot of that intentionality of purpose is really important in terms of the masculine recognizing that that point of consistency, that ability to like build and create the world that you're in the present, is very much the point of working through this point in terms of energetically recognizing what feels like it's brought you into alignment and how you want to proceed forward versus that continual adaptability moment. So we see even now for a lot of the masculine energy coming into divine union, that recognition point is almost requiring you to wrestle with the choices that you made prior to this point, but also recognizing that your own ability to find that sense of intentionality and virtue right now is helping you shape and craft what you are building as you go forward from this time. So we see even now for a lot of the masculine energy and feminine energy coming into divine union, a lot of that openness and clarity is almost, again, amplifying in relationality to describing what has occurred in the past so that you can shape that future most effectively and most in a place of feeling the full amplification of recognizing like the full clarity of who you are and what you desire and what you ascertain and want to build going forward. That's that point of breakthrough that feels very heavy, while also creates that sense and state of like amplifying what it looks like as you move forward from here. Masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine union frequency, this breakthrough moment, I told you, this is why we see energetically right now something that I can best describe as that feeling of catharsis that's leading to breakthroughs, because a lot of this work that we're effectively energetically seeing here right now is basically recognizing that what may have led you to this point doesn't necessarily need to continue to be the way that you move, especially if you find yourselves in different vibrations or different modalities. That's why I told you a lot of this energy that we're recognizing here does feel like a little bit of energetic spring cleaning. Because that observation point in saying to oneself, just because we've used to do something in that way Doesn't mean we need to hold firm in that. That's that feeling of the difference between looking at something that may feel like you were having that point of like emotional or energetic training wheels versus something that you now feel like you need to shift and adjust. And that's why we even see now for both masculine and feminine, even in the divine union frequency, taking this moment and assessing and discussing how much you've changed while being in the frequency with one another is allowing new productive opportunity for ideas and expansion to occur in the realms of your own connectedness to one another. Final card for today's spread is bottom of the deck, Six of Cups in its reversal. One of the challenges that we're effectively seeing right now has to do with unhealed karmic connections. I'm not surprised to see this right now. Bearing in mind, one of the things that we've been seeing a lot right now has been a lot of this processing. All of it potentially has to do with the unhealed karmic connections. Why? We see masculine and feminine in the heart of the divine union frequency working through unrecognized patterns. And what happens when we want to recognize a pattern that we can't see in ourselves? We go back to where it may have started, which was probably, shocker, an unhealed karmic connection that led to some of those patterns taking shape. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. Now that you're in the heart of the divine union, you're able to see and observe the unhealed karmic connections with new eyes. What you do with that going forward does feel like that point of like potential volatility, because that feeling of something about like seeing the past resurfacing right now with the clarity and understanding that of the energy in the divine union is almost that moment that makes you feel like you're like re-wrestling a lot of those situations anew, because it's like having to address them again, recognizing that they haven't gone away. It's just that they've taken a new shape that you need to kind of observe and recognize and like file them as you will to help you as you progress forward from this point. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, this is the assertion point in looking at what feels like an unhealed karmic connection. Unfortunately, for some of the energy right now, that recognition point of feeling a lot of passion for someone, but not feeling like you are on the same path as them, is potentially, again, feeling like you are moving away from someone, and it's not feeling like the connection is being severed. It's just feeling like you're doing what is necessary in terms of staying on your own path. So that can occasionally make it very difficult, because it's not that you're not feeling the pull of the energetic connection, but you're also recognizing that that pull is just something that you have to navigate and live with, because you're not feeling like you're seeing that ability of coming into alignment in terms of being on the same path. So even now, a lot of the energy right now in separation, dealing with something that feels like an unhealed karmic connection, may feel like it's very much pulling someone back at a time that they're trying to move forward. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way that you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.